Madam Speaker, let me first thank all members for your comments, suggestions on how we can move forward on these issues together. Let me round up your comments and put them into 3 sets of issues that we have to tackle. First, I think many of you have given ideas on how we can extend the marriage and parenthood benefits to more parents. The second set of issues has to do with various suggestions on how we can refine the various leave schemes and benefits from both the perspective of the employers and the employees. And third, and most importantly, how do we create the entire environment for us to make Singapore the best place to have families and children. So let me thank all of you for your suggestions. There are some things that we will do immediately. There are other things that we will do perhaps in due course with your support. Let me begin with the first one. As Professor Eugene Tan has mentioned, actually we have 2 sets of objectives in this entire discussion. Many of you have said that we want to continue to promote the family as a central institution in our society. We want to encourage people to get married. We want children to be able to have a happy environment within the ambit of a marriage. And these are the reasons why we have the enhanced marriage and parenthood package. But many of you have also spoken of a different objective, which is that we should take care of the vulnerable families, especially the children amongst us. As all of you say, the children are innocent. They are brought to this world not because they have a choice, and we should do our best to take care of them, regardless of their parents' circumstances. These 2 are slightly different objectives. On one hand, we do not want to send the wrong signal on the kind of values we hold in society towards marriage and the institution of the family. On the other hand, whatever else have happened, we want to be able to take care of all children amongst us. And I think we can all agree to that. For the first set of reasons, this is why we have the enhanced M&P package. And we have introduced many of these challenges. For the second set of issues, we need another policy instrument. As many practitioners of policy making will know, when you have 2 different objectives, you will need at least 2 sets of instruments. So the M&P package is to meet one set of objectives, and we need another set of instruments to help the vulnerable families amongst us. And I must say that we never discriminate any children, regardless of what the parents is. I don't imagine what single parents' family go through. I come from one myself. I know it's difficult. And which is why we endeavor to do our best to help the children, regardless of their circumstances. But the baby bonus may not be I won't say that the baby bonus is the most significant package to help the children. That has a different policy objective. We have other instruments to help vulnerable children or children from vulnerable families. I think the most important thing that we can do for such children in such vulnerable families is to provide them with the best education that they can get, to allow them to fulfill their potential to the best of their ability. The second thing that we can do and must do for them is to make sure that their health care is provided for. And these, to me, are the 2 critical things from my own personal experience. Which is why we have invested so much in education, childcare, to ensure that children, regardless of race, language, religion, regardless of socio-economic background, get the help that they need in getting out of the difficult situations that they are in. If we look at the lifetime investment that we have in a child, I think the most significant one, and even in financial terms, the most significant one will be in education. The subsidies that we give to every child from infant care to childcare subsidies, education subsidies, EduSave, post-secondary education account, and so forth. The other very significant one is healthcare subsidies, which includes the MediSave grant for newborns, MediShield coverage for congenital and neonatal conditions, and other social assistance schemes. And we want to do more. I have said during my Committee of Supply speech that in the coming year, we are looking forward to developing new measures to help vulnerable families. Families that do not just need financial help, but families who require a long-term hand-holding. Many of the single-parent family that you all have talked about falls into that category. They require financial help, they require mentorship, they require training, they require assistance in housing, and so on and so forth. Our job and our challenge is to package that help for them. At the same time, we want to do what we can to make sure that the children have access to this package of help and they know where to go to. And I have mentioned before, the most challenging thing for us to help these families is to make sure that we can mobilize the resources of the community to come forward together to provide the mentorship for these people. So I would say that we never discriminate any children. Every child to us is precious. And my ministry will continue to assist them, but we understand different families need different packages, and we'll continue to design those packages for them. While trying to simplify the scheme, I think it will not be possible for us to have one scheme to meet all the needs, the diverse needs of the different families in need and the different vulnerable families. So I have no problem running different schemes so long as I can meet the objective of helping each and every one of these families. And members of this House, I would like to encourage members of this House to come and join us in this, identify those families in need and help us to reach out to them. I come to the second one, about the second issue, which is the refinement of the leave scheme. I think all of you supported the moves towards the paternity leave, the shared parental leave. We have made a start towards that trajectory. Where we will eventually end up will depend on how fast and how ready society is able to adjust. I won't rule out one day that the proportion may change between the paternity and the maternity leave. These are things that we as a society have to decide. But let us make the first step. Get us onto the correct trajectory. The rest of the second order details we can adjust and refine along the way. On adoption leave, members have suggested a longer leave period as well as more time for adoptive parents to take the leave. The bill now enhances the adoption leave by making a voluntary scheme mandatory and allowing it to be taken over 12 months from the birth of the child instead of over 6 months previously. And we have also shifted the start date of the adoption leave earlier, or in the adoption process. Let us monitor this and see whether it meets the needs of the majority of the parents who want to adopt a kid. As of today, the majority of them adopt their kid within the first year. But if we need to make further adjustments, we can consider that in the future. But I think Associate Professor Eugene Tan has pointed out that there is a difference between maternity leave and adoption leave, because the maternity leave caters to the time required for the mother to physically recuperate from childbirth and nurse the infant before returning to work. It is for this reason that's why the maternity leave is slightly different from the adoption leave. Adoptive mothers who wish to take longer adoption leave, or couples who adopt older children, can tap the 6-day childcare leave and the 6 days unpaid infant care leave to spend more time with their adopted child. On the refinements of the protection provisions, Professor Eugene Tan spoke about higher penalties for errant employers, while Mr. Dinakaran also spoke about the penalties for errant employees and a whistleblowing mechanism. We understand where you're coming from. We appreciate that. And in designing any protection measures, there's always a need to balance the interests of the employers and the employees. But what is most important in this is not the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. We hope all employers and employees can come on board to realize that it is a win-win and mutually beneficial relationship to promote a pro-family environment, for employers to support employees in their family, in bringing up their families, and also for employees to realize that they too have a duty to work with the employers to work out a mutually beneficial relationship. And this is part of the total environment which I will talk about later. So the current bill represents a balance, and this balance will evolve as society evolves. We have already introduced higher penalties for errant employers up to $10,000 in fines and or 12 months of imprisonment for subsequent offences. Section 11 of the Child Development Co-Savings Act also enables employers and the government to recover payment from the employee if the payment was granted based on false or misleading information. Any employer, employee, or even a third party can lodge a complaint to the Ministry of Manpower on employment malpractices he observes or suspects, and MUM will take the appropriate action. We would like to assure Mr. Dinakaran that all information provided, including the identity of the informant, will be kept confidential. So, to sum it up, let me come to the most important part, which is the third prong of what we have discussed. And how do we, together, create a pro-family environment for Singapore and Singaporeans to have children and a happy family? I would characterize it in terms of 3 concentric circles. At the heart of it are the parents, the individuals. The second ring has to do with the environment that we live in, the society, the community. And at the outermost ring, that has to do with our policies and the macro environment. Let me start with the outermost ring. As members of the House have mentioned, indeed, the government provides the macro environment through the laws and policies. We try to be as supportive as we can. Where we are able, we try to share the fruits of our labor with families, especially those who need it more. And I hope members of this House will agree with me that within the finite pool of resources that we have, we should always try to help those who have less with a bit more. That is the way we go about designing our policies. Of course, some people might feel that they should get a bit more. Some people might feel otherwise. But we all should agree that within the finite pool of resources that we have, we should help those with less much more. And that speaks for an inclusive society. So whether is it in terms of leave scheme, balancing the requirements with between employees and employers, we'll continue to find that balance. But the government can only provide that part of the circle. We need the support of the employers, we need the support of the businesses, we need the support of the community to make for a more inclusive, more pro-family environment. Beyond all the policies that the government have, at the end of the day, the individuals, the parents, come into contact with their employers day in, day out. They go into the work environment day in, day out. What they experience will shape their perception towards a family. How pro-family are the employers' practices will shape and influence decisions made by the individuals. How we design our living environment, how we design even our recreation environments will send a signal to everyone how welcoming we as a society is towards families and families with young kids. How we as a community respond to children screaming among us, running around us. Do we frown upon them? Or do we look at them with appreciative eyes? That speaks to the young parents deciding whether to have the child or not. So I agree with all members that we all have a responsibility to play in making this pro-family environment, whether is it in the neighborhood or is it in the workplace. We all can do our part. But ultimately, that decision to start a family and have children is a deeply personal one. We can have all the correct policies, we can have all the correct incentives and benefits, we can have all the help schemes in the world. But if at the end of the day, our individual priorities and value systems are not towards having a family, then no matter what policies, what help schemes we have, we will never be able to have that pro-family mindset. We are not doing this because we are trying to see babies as economic digits. Never, never suggested. We want Singaporeans to have happy families because this is part and parcel of having a meaningful life in Singapore beyond having a meaningful career. So no, children are not economic digits. Children are part of our family life. And it saddens me when people take out a balance sheet to try and calculate all the pluses and minuses financially, numerically, before they decide to make that leap of faith. I'm sure our parents, with much less than us, never did that before they conceived us. If they have done that, maybe we won't be where we are. We won't even be here today. But it is a deeply personal choice. What we can do is to make sure that we educate our people, our young people, and help them at every stage of their life cycle. This is the reason why MSF has embarked on this Family Matters initiative. It is a life cycle approach towards promoting family life, getting our people to share in the joys of family from young till they go out to work, and even after they have their children. At every stage of their life cycle. From young, we have to start inculcating in our youth the appreciation of family lives, that the family is the anchor of all that we do, and it gives meaning to all that we do. When they are older, we try and help them to have opportunities to meet their life partners, to settle down, and so forth. Even after they get married, we try to give them help to make sure that we lessen the burden and the fear of starting a family. That is important. But I'm quite sure it won't give us benefits in the short term, because this is a long-term challenge. It takes us many years to build that pro-family environment and mindset. And we want to make this possible across the entire environment, from the workplace to the community, which is why we're going to spend $40 million in the next 3 years to encourage the environment, to work with employers, to work with community partners to bring that about. And we want to use all channels, all mediums, to send this message forth. And that is important. But if we get this right, then we will never talk about children as being a digit, because children becomes an intrinsic part of our family, a part of our meaning in life, and so forth. So this is what we seek to do. So at the end of the day, whether we talk about the MMP package at the macro level, the TFR at the macro level, at the end of the day, it boils down to individual decisions at the micro level. And this is where we need to have our values right, our priorities right, and then we can go forth and build the community that is pro-family, that business environment that's pro-family, and so forth. And the government will continue and endeavor to make sure that we walk this journey with all fellow Singaporeans. The government will make sure that the macro environment is right, that we move on the correct trajectories to encourage the second circle, the businesses, the work environment, and so forth to do their part. But at the end of the day, we have to get the individual values and priorities right, without which the rest will not work. So on that note, I'd like to thank all members of the House for your support for this bill. And I'm quite sure that with time, we will continue to evolve our policies to meet the changing needs of our society. And I hope that we can all walk this journey together, and each of us doing our parts to encourage a more pro-family environment, to encourage that sense of love for our children. Thank you.